Jesus went with his disciples into Judah and taught there. At this time, John of the Wilderness, who heralded the coming of Jesus, was baptizing at Aenon, not far from Salim, because there was a plentiful supply of water in that place. A great number of people came to be cleansed in the waters, for John was still free. At that time there was much disturbance in Samaria, and many soldiers were coming and going, for a false deliverer had arisen and proclaimed himself as God's anointed. The people were restless, and there were many rumors, but John had no dealings with any of these. Yet some said the false deliverer was a follower of John's, but this was untrue. The disciples of John came to him and said, "Respected teacher, some time ago you testified concerning a man who came to you on the other side of the river. Now he has started to baptize, and his teachings gather many men to him." John said, "No man can speak with authority concerning God without his sanction, but this man I know to be a true messenger and a worthy son." They said, "He also heals." John replied, "No man can heal except through the power of the Holy Spirit, and this man has that power. I have said I am not the chosen one, neither am I any other whom men seek. I am the forerunner sent to herald his coming. The bride belongs to the bridegroom, but he who stands at the bridegroom's right hand to support him is pleased when he hears the words spoken by the bridegroom. That pleasure is now mine, but not for long. For as my star declines, so his waxes brighter." John feared no man, and condemned hypocrisy and indifference to the law wherever he found it. He was the rod of the poor and unlearned, and a staff to the weak and oppressed. He was incorruptible and spoke forthrightly, never hiding anything within his heart, and condemned wrongdoing wherever it occurred. Now John baptized with water, and because of this the priests were against him, but on this matter they could do nothing. However, John had condemned the actions of Herod, who had sinned against his blood and the law, and because of this the people murmured against Herod. Therefore, as there were restless times, and the people were in a mood for revolt, he had John taken and imprisoned. For had there been a rising against Herod at this time, Rome could not have come to his aid. John was imprisoned in a fortress, and this pleased Herodias, for she had long borne ill will towards him. Though Herod had no lawful right to take his brother's wife, the fault was not his alone. Herodias wished with all her heart to rid herself of the condemnations of John, but could not accomplish this because Herod held John in awe. For he was a truly holy man, much beloved by the people. Though John was kept in confinement, Herod often spoke with him and listened to his words. But though they stirred the heart of Herod, he found them difficult to understand. While in prison, doubt stirred in the heart of John, and he sent disciples to Jesus, inquiring whether he felt he was truly God's anointed, for at this time there was much confusion on the matters. When the disciples returned, their reply puzzled John, for they reported Jesus as saying, "I am not he whom you expected, or the deliverer of these people, but a deliverer of all men. Nevertheless, if only another will change the hearts of our people, I shall not be found wanting." But John received enlightenment and knew that he had not erred. Now a certain feast day came, and Herod entertained his officials and the leading men of Galilee. And during the course of the entertainment, his daughter danced for the guests. She so charmed and delighted them that Herod, while under the influence of wine and the urges of others, being all full of pride at their applause, swore to grant her any boon, whatever it entailed. The girl withdrew to consult her mother, who told her to request the head of John, though the request greatly upset Herod and sobered him, because he realized the extent of his folly. He himself could not break an oath of this sort made in the presence of his guests. The oath sworn was a kingly one, but Herod was not a king. Therefore he put it to one of the guests, a learned man, as to whether anything he wished to do would have force within the law, or whether he could only be bound by an oath made within the law. The man replied that even kings were bound by the law, and though Herod was less than a king, he had sworn a kingly oath, which, if broken, would confirm his lack of kingly authority. However, he said that John, being a lawbreaker, could not be protected by the law. So the oath made by Herod stood. So on the morrow the head of John was struck off and displayed at the gate. So it was that John was put to death, because Herod feared his influence over the people, for he declared the coming of a new kingdom, and Herod feared the day of deliverance. John had said, "I have been sent with many powers. I am with you to point out the way of the law. I herald the deliverer and the rule of God." John had taught his disciples to pray in this manner: "Holy be the name of the Most High God in the places he created to serve his will. Let the coming of the new kingdom under the rule of God not be delayed beyond our days, but come in the time which is at hand. When the followers of John heard what had happened, they took charge of the body of John and laid it in a tomb by the river. There was a loud outcry from the people, who said, "Why should our prophets be treated in this manner? Where is the deliverer?" Later, when Jesus returned to the river, he found two followers of John and took them to a place of safety.